Hi and welcome. I'm Cindy. I blog at DIY Beautify, where I love to share thrifty ways for you to beautify your home. And today I'm excited to show you how I used just some simple canvas drop cloth and made these adorable farmhouse style carrots. They have a little bit of a primitive feel to them. As you can see, they're stamped 5 cents. And they've got cute little tops, and they were really easy to do. So let's head over to my craft table and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so let's just go over the supplies that you're going to need to make these little carrots. Obviously some fabric. You can use whatever fabric you like. I chose painter's canvas drop cloth. Once it's washed and dried, it's got this really nice nubby texture that just really works nice in my home. So fabric, and then you're going to need a way to secure the carrots together. Either a sewing machine like I did here, or you could use fabric glue. I don't recommend hot glue, it makes a bit of a mess. You're going to need scissors, some thread and a needle, a bag of rice, and polyester stuffing, fiberfill if you have it. Then you're going to need some jute and some raffia. And then finally, if you want to do the stamped look, a set of stamps and an ink pad. And I recommend, this is a dye ink pad rather than a pigment. The pigment stays wet for a while. It's meant for embossing. So go ahead and get a dye-based one from the craft store, or you probably have one in your stash. Squarish piece of paper. You're going to fold it in half. Now let me look at it this way. All right, so you want the fold to be your middle of your carrot. If you just kind of think of it as you're just going to cut half of it out. So use a ruler and draw just like a rough line going down to the end. And when we cut this out, we should have a triangle. It's not going to be a perfect triangle, and that really does not matter. I also recommend, if you're using drop cloth, that you cut off that hem if you have one. I actually prefer to rip it because then I get a frayed edge like this. But in this case, it's pretty hard to rip it when it's right at the end there, and you can just go ahead and pull, you know, some of the threads and fray it yourself. So you can see that we have a triangle. So the ways that you keep this together, yesterday when I made my carrots, I just took a needle and a thread and I sewed a running stitch along the open seam. It took me forever, but I was too lazy to haul out the sewing machine. So if you have fabric glue, go ahead and use that. Today when I made them, I used my sewing machine. I just went ahead and grabbed it. It took me about 3 minutes to sew these. So next, what you want to do is just trim off that bottom part. That point of the carrot is where it tends to get rather bulky. And so now we want to turn it inside out. And this is pretty easy at the beginning, and then it gets pretty difficult because we're trying to turn that little point. You can, sometimes I'll use like a pencil or another tool like a knitting needle and push. I wasn't having a whole lot of luck doing that yesterday. One thing that I like to do, and maybe you'll find it more difficult, is just kind of pull it with my fingers as much as I can. And then when I'm unable to do that anymore, I'll just see if I can go a little further. Then I just take my needle and I just kind of help it along. You're not going to get a super fine point but just keep going until you're happy with it. I think that's good. Now, the next step is to lay your carrot flat with the seam in the middle and just flip it over, and you'll see that one end is a little bit longer. I just trim that little, it's kind of like a triangle, so that it's flat along your top edge. Okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, this is just like kind of like a primitive looking carrot, so don't worry about that too much. Now, I used rice because I was all out of polyester stuffing, and I know some people say don't do that because you'll end up getting bugs when you store it in the attic. But honestly, I've never had a problem. I've done this with pumpkins, I've done this with snowmen. I always store my seasonal decor in tightly sealed tubs, so that isn't much of an issue. So what I do is I pour, just as you can see, a little bit of rice, and then I'm kind of massaging it with my hands. I just want to try to get it to move down into that pointed area as much as possible. The nice thing about making the carrot with rice, it's got a nice firm structure to it, and it holds its shape nicely. The ones that are made out of just polyfill, you know, they're a lot more squishy. You could also do both. You could do approximately this much, you know, probably a third of your carrot with the rice, just to give it some stability at the bottom, and then you could fill the rest of it with polyfill. I'm going to go ahead and add, I don't want to go all the way to the top. Yesterday I ended up with rice all over my floor. Okay, so I've got about a little more to go, but again, I'm just going to kind of squeeze it and press the rice, try to get it moving down, pack it in there as much as possible. Okay, so the next step is we need to seal this up, and we're not going to quite do that yet, but go ahead and string, add some thread. I've doubled my thread onto a needle. You do not have to knot the end. And about an inch down from the seam, we're going to do just a really loose running stitch. When you pull your thread, leave several inches hanging there. That's what we're going to use to tie it off. And then just continue this really loose stitch all the way around the carrot. I guess this is not a running stitch, it's a gathering stitch, because when we pull the ends, we're going to gather all that fabric together. I like to do this at this point just because this can be kind of finicky, but as you can see, if we pull it, we're going to tighten it, but we don't want to quite go there yet. We need to add our carrot tops. And I'm just using raffia. Literally, I mean, I think it came like this from the Dollar Tree. I think I got 3 of these. So I'm just taking 2 pieces of the length that came with it. I'm just going to line up one end, and I'm going to just literally wrap it around my hands. Loosely, I'm stretching my fingers out a little bit, just as many times as I can get it to go around. Okay? And then I want to hang on to the bottom, and I'm just going to cut through the loops at the top, and I can trim off those excess little pieces. Okay, so the bottom is still looped together and the top is open. We've cut those. So now I'm just going to put something heavy on it to hold it, my water glass on it, and I want to finish filling my carrot up with rice up to just under that stitching line that I did. You're not going to be able to see this, but I'll show you once I've got enough rice in there. Ooh. didn't want to come and then it came really fast. Okay, so you can see the rice, and then I've got a little bit of room. So then you can start to gather your seams a little bit, but make sure you leave enough of an opening that we can insert our raffia. So take your raffia. You want to take the folded ends and you're going to just stick them down into the rice. Okay. Those didn't end up. I want them to stick out about that much, so I think I might need to add just a tad more rice. And there, you can hear it falling. I think when I held my carrot up that a lot of the rice that was at the top sort of worked its way to the bottom. And I'm just kind of, I don't know what this is called, massaging a carrot. I want to move that rice and pack it as firmly as I can. Okay, there we go. You can still see it's below the seam line. So now I'm going to take my raffia, make sure that my ends are somewhat together. I'm going to stick it into the rice. Okay, now holding it with one hand, take your thread with the other hand, and we're going to tie a knot. You want to pull it as tight as it'll go to gather it. Sorry, this is a little hard to do, and make sure that your view, see what I'm doing on camera, you know what I mean. All right, let me try that again because I think I lost. There we go. It's just a simple loop. And when you pull it, you want to pull it as tight as possible, but you have to be careful that you don't break your thread. So go as tight as you can, and then bring it around the other side, and we're going to tie it again. This is much easier than it looks. I'm just trying to make sure that you can see what I'm doing on the camera. It's hard to take my eyes off. Okay, so pull it, but don't break your thread. Trust me, I did that, I think, twice yesterday. I have enough thread. I'm going to go back to the other side and tie it off again, and then again, just to knot it. You can do it a couple times. Let's do it one more. Got enough thread. Okay. Now we can cut that excess thread off. And you can see that it's secure. When I turn it upside down, there's no rice coming out. Oh, I did lose a piece of jute, or you know what I'm talking about, raffia. Now we want to add the jute. And I'm just using scraps that I have in my craft room from other projects. So starting at the back where the seam is, bring your jute up, and we're just going to tie it once and then twice, but we're going to pull as hard as we can to tighten the top of the carrot. Okay, and then we want to trim our ends. And then I just thought it looked kind of bland like this, so I'm just loosening. Jute is made up of several strands that are twisted together, and if you can just release them, I know it just looks cuter for some reason. You can keep going and make it super fuzzy, or do as much or as little as you want. I just think it kind of adds to the primitive feel of these carrots. And they're not true primitives. If I wanted to make them look really grungy, I would have taken some I have some brown chalk or even some brown, like watered down acrylic craft paint, and just kind of, you know, gone over it with that to make it look grungy. I'm not going for the grungy look, but okay. There's the top of our carrot. It looks pretty cute, doesn't it? So you can be done and you can make like 2 or 3 of these and then take another piece of twine. Let me grab a couple of these guys and tie them. This is how you see them at the craft store. Tie them together with a little bow. And you can even have a little tag that hangs off of it that says carrots 15 cents a bunch or whatever. I think I'm having fun just putting the words directly onto the carrot. So this is where I'm going to grab my ink pad. And I have this really neat little set of stamps. I got it on Amazon. I think it was like $15. It has upper and lower case plus some symbols. Of course, it doesn't have the cents symbol, so I had to improvise and use the L and the capital C, and I had to double the L and then try to make the C fit in the middle. It's very imperfect, but that's fine. I kind of like it that way. What do I want to do on this one? Not sure what happened. My video stopped recording there, but you can see that in just a few minutes I've got homegrown on there, and I think that's really cute. I'm going to go ahead and make 2 more of these longer carrots, and then I may go ahead and bundle them up together as a trio, and then I'll show you how I'm styling them in my home.